Within. My name is Coach Kochek, and I specialize in helping people tell their stories and express their thoughts, feelings, ambitions, and emotions in a captivating way. So today, I want to talk about the three things that interrupt your flow and the three solutions to make sure that your flow is not interrupted. When I talk about writing flow, it's more than just the ability to sit down and type words. Writing flow to me means that you are in a space where the words and the phrases and the sentences that are coming out of you come more from your entire body than just from your head. And let me explain. I really believe that writing is a very spiritual practice. Writing is prayer. Writing is a form of accessing very deep sacred spaces in your heart, mind, and soul. That is the potential of writing. But a lot of times when it comes to writing, we minimize it just to a practice that so many of us connect to school, because that's really where we were introduced to the first nuances of writing. But writing, if you allow it, can be such a spiritual experience that can allow you to tap into some things that are on the inside of you that mere words speaking cannot allow you to access. That's the power of getting in flow. Getting in flow means you're not overthinking, you're not self-editing, you are not overwhelmed by everything going on inside of you. It's almost like being plugged in, very similar to when you are meditating or when you're in prayer and you just feel in the moment. You just feel connected to yourself and to a higher power, whatever that is that you ascribe to. The same thing can occur when you are writing, but unfortunately, there's so many things that can bog us down and can really make writing a chore. So it's almost like if you're sitting down to write and you're staring at this blank screen and there's a blinking cursor and you know that you have something that you want to say, but you don't know how to you don't know how to start, you don't know where to start, you don't know what words you want to write. And it's very similar to when you were assigned an essay in high school and you have to sit in front of a computer and try to come up with a whole bunch of words to fill up pages and you just don't know what to say. It can be a very frustrating experience and it can make writing feel like an assignment. And when writing feels like an assignment, then what you end up producing ends up being forced. It ends up a lot of times not being really connected to who we are or what we want to say. So when you get in your flow, that can allow you to honor the integrity of the words that you want to communicate. So what I have found, I'm going to identify the three major ones. And like I said, there's many of them. But one of the ones that I have noticed for myself and for my clients is a lot of times we are mentally blocked, which means that there's too much going on inside of our minds that blocks the flow. So the mental blocks can simply be, I got in a fight with somebody last night and I'm still upset about it today. Or I have 10 things on my task list and this is one of them and I got to hurry because meeting me after this is 9 other things. And I'm stressed or I'm exhausted or, financially I feel overwhelmed. There could be so many emotions and so many thoughts that block us from really getting into our flow. And when that happens, it can almost make it even more intense because now if you're already going in mentally overwhelmed and mentally blocked, and now you are putting the task upon yourself to now come up with some words, that can be overwhelming. It can make it even worse. You can become even more stressed. So one of the things that I do to address feeling mentally overwhelmed is to do some sort of spiritual practice that allows you to release a lot of latent emotions, a lot of it's because sometimes it can be representative in our body, right? You might even come to sit down to write and your body might feel clenched because our bodies sometimes are sending us the message of what's going on internally with us. So whatever spiritual practice you ascribe to, you can start before you write, you can sit down and pray. You can meditate, you can do yoga, you can create a quiet space. I always say that your writing space should be sacred. You should approach writing the same way that you would approach a very spiritual environment, very humbled in gratitude, realizing that there is a potential for this moment to be transformative. So you want to make sure that you have a writing space that doesn't make you feel even more chaotic and even more overwhelmed. Make sure you have a clear writing space, maybe light candles, maybe play soft meditative music. Another exercise that you can do is actually sitting down before you actually write and use that moment of writing as an exercise for you to release. So that can just be you writing out, how are you feeling? Doing a quick journal dump where you're just saying, I'm overwhelmed and this is going on. Or if you have a trusted confidant, maybe have a moment where you call and vent and just release so that you can clear your mind. So all of these solutions are plugged into what can you do to take some of the pressure off of your mind and off of your body so that you can feel more at ease to flow. The second block is, so many times when we are writing, we get caught up in technicalities. Like I said earlier, our first introduction to writing for most of us happened in a classroom. And when we were introduced to writing, writing was introduced as an academic subject, which meant there were rules, there were systems. A lot of the times, the things we were writing about were boring. It was academic in nature. And once we wrote, we gave it to somebody who was supposed to be an expert. And then that person gave us back our writing with a bunch of red marks on it, pretty much saying, you didn't do a great job. So a lot of times when we are looking at the idea of writing, sometimes we get into an educational thought process where we get so caught up with technicalities. Like we're thinking about commas and we're thinking about complete sentences and we're thinking about the words that we're using and we're thinking about that red pen and maybe the judgment of some of your teachers. Now, I know I had some pretty fabulous English teachers, but I had an art teacher in elementary school who told me that I was the worst artist she ever saw. And that impacted how I viewed art, my relationship with art, because somebody who was supposed to be an expert told me that I was bad at it. And really, art is so subjective, anyways. To say that somebody's bad at art just sounds ridiculous. And the same is true with writing. Writing is an expression of the soul. Writing is an expression of who you are. So for someone to say you're a terrible writer, that's a subjective statement. So a lot of times when we're writing, we get so in our heads based on our introduction to writing and how we view writing, and then the words of people in our lives that might have discouraged us or made us feel like we're not as good as, or we can't write well because we never did well in English. Those two things don't correlate. Just because you didn't do well in English, just because your teacher told you you weren't good at it, does not mean that you don't have the skill of writing or the skill of being a writer. Because real writing, people with the skill of writing, are people who have the skill of vulnerability, are people who are willing to be honest, are people who are getting in that supernatural flow that brings up words from their soul. The technicalities get fixed in the editing process. Like, you don't worry about that. The purpose of writing is just get it out, let it flow, and then hand it to the professional editor who then helps you. You team up with them and they help you clean it up. But when our first moment of writing is so caught up in technicalities, what you produce is a textbook. And nobody wants to read a textbook. Nobody that I know. I certainly don't want to read a textbook. So instead of getting caught up in the technicalities, brain dump, which means stop being your editor. Stop being your 8th grade teacher who is standing over you ready with the red pen to tell you that what you just wrote sucks. Just write. Don't allow yourself to go back a sentence. So as you're writing, go from sentence to sentence to sentence. Don't allow yourself to go back up to the top, because what will happen is after you write, if you keep going back, then you're going to keep trying to edit yourself, and then you're discrediting what you wrote, which then discredits the rest of what you wrote, and it will be a repeated cycle. Just get in the mode of brain dumping. Just write without thinking about it, write without editing. Don't worry about punctuation. Don't worry about spelling. Just flow. Just let it flow from the honest space in your mind and in your heart. And just keep telling yourself, I'm not my editor. I'm not my editor. I pay someone good money to edit my work. Even from the standpoint of a professional, I edit. I'm a ghostwriter. I coach. But when I produce something that is of mass value, when I published my first book, I did not edit myself. I had editors. I paid people to edit my work because there's value in having expert opinion and getting feedback beyond yourself. So don't edit yourself. Just dump. Just if you have to, set a timer. For 15 minutes, I'm just going to write. I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to delete. I'm just going to write. The third thing that can interrupt your flow is getting caught in the comparison trap, which means that whatever you sit down to write, you think in your mind, this has already been done before. Somebody's already written it and they are better than me. Right. And this is probably one of the ones that is the most unfortunate and can be the most damaging. How many books and short stories and blogs and little, even social media blurbs, how many of those forms of transformational writing are we missing out on because somebody is caught in the comparison trap? Because the minute that they sit down, they discredit what they had to say because they say somebody's already written it. Here's the reality. There's nothing new under the sun. I really embrace that phrase because I think it is 100% true. Everything has been said before, right? We're all saying similar things, only differently. The thing that brings what you have to write value is that it comes from you. And the beautiful thing is that nobody on the earth is you, that you fill a unique space in this earth, which means your unique fingerprint also comes with a unique story. So if I'm writing a story about my experience with being a people pleaser, it's a reality. And I have a story about how being a people pleaser took me down a road that veered so far away from who I was authentically created to be that it nearly destroyed me. Right? That's my story. And maybe you have a similar story. Maybe you had an experience with being a people pleaser. It's the same concept, but it reads completely differently because my response to that and my life and my experiences and my belief and the relationships I had in my life are different than yours. So while the concept is the same, there is a rich statement that is made totally different in the same concept. So while the idea might already be out there in the universe, there is a specific audience that needs you because the way that you are going to communicate it and the way that you are going to say it and the experiences that you have, they need your voice because they connect to your voice. I want you to think about it this way. There are so many people that are flooding the personal development world, right? And they're saying so many similar things. But the value is that there's some people that you listen to more than others because there's something about who they are and their story and the personality that you connect to. You are connecting to the essence of that person's story. Because that's the beauty of being unique, is that some people we just connect to more, saying similar things, but there's something about who that person is that makes me connect to them. So the way to break this is believing that there is a message of value inside of you. If you don't believe it, we won't believe it. If when you're writing, you don't feel it and you don't connect with your story and see the value in it, we won't see it. So it has to start with you first. And that might just simply being you writing something every single day before you sit down to write by just saying, my name is Amy, whatever your name is, my name is, and I have something to say. As simple as that, saying affirming statements about who you are and the importance of what you have to say. Don't rob us of the value of who you are and what you have to gift this world through writing because you are afraid of being compared to somebody else or because you have discredited what you have to say because somebody else is quote unquote already saying it. We're all already saying it, but only you can say it in the way that you are tasked to say it. So those are the 3 things that interrupt flow. And I challenge you this week to try, if these resonated with you, I challenge you this week to try at least one of these to minimize the ability for you to be in your own way. So, because all three of these are essentially just you getting in your own way. So, to get into flow, get out of your own way and just start communicating and writing the very special message that's inside of you. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Coach Kochek, and I am so excited about the process of unlocking the writer within you. See you next time.